Hello everyone. Welcome back to our channel English Avenue. Today, we are going to listen to a very powerful and motivational story on the topic. Everything happens for a reason. This is one of the deepest truths of life. Because sometimes life does not happen the way we planned. Sometimes the door we prayed for does not open. Sometimes the person we trusted walks away. Sometimes the opportunity we waited for disappears. Sometimes we give our best, but still things go wrong. And in that moment, it feels unfair, it feels painful, it feels like life is against us. We ask, why did this happen to me? Why now? Why after all my hard work? Why did I lose something I wanted so badly? But many times, life does not stop us to destroy us. Sometimes life stops us to protect us. Sometimes a delay is not rejection. Sometimes a missed chance is not the end. Sometimes what breaks your heart is actually saving your future. And sometimes, the thing you call bad luck today becomes the reason you thank life tomorrow. This topic is important because many people lose hope too early. They judge their whole life by one painful chapter. They think one rejection means they are not good enough. They think one delay means their dream is finished. They think one closed door means there is no future. But life is bigger than one moment. Your story is bigger than one disappointment. Your dream is bigger than one missed chance. This story will remind you that not everything you lose is a loss. Not every delay is punishment. Not every closed door is failure. Sometimes life is quietly moving you toward a better path. A path you did not choose. A path you did not expect. But a path that was meant for you. So listen to this story with your heart, because maybe somewhere in this story, you will see your own life. Maybe you are also waiting for something. Maybe you are also confused by a delay. Maybe you are also hurt by a missed chance. Maybe you also feel like life has forgotten you. But remember this: the reason may not be clear today, but that does not mean there is no reason. Chapter 1. The Dream. She carried alone. In a quiet coastal town, where the sea touched the land every morning like a soft promise, there lived a young woman named Elena. Her town was small. The streets were narrow. The houses were old. The air smelled of salt, rain, and fresh bread from the little bakery near the harbor. Every morning, fishermen pushed their boats into the water. Children ran to school with heavy bags. Old people sat near windows and watched the waves as if the sea was telling them old stories. Life in that town was simple, slow, peaceful. But Elena's heart was not small like the town. Her heart was full of dreams. Since childhood, Elena loved stories. When other children played outside, Elena often sat near the window with a notebook in her lap. She wrote about lonely stars, lost travelers, brave girls, old ships, forgotten letters, dreams that refused to die. She did not write because someone forced her. She wrote because writing made her feel alive. For Elena, words were not just words. Words were a place to breathe. When she felt lonely, she wrote. When she felt happy, she wrote. When she was confused, she wrote. When nobody understood her, she wrote. Her notebook became her safest friend. But the world around her did not take her dream seriously. People in her town were practical. They believed in stable jobs, safe choices, normal lives. They did not understand why a girl would spend years writing stories that might never be published. Some people laughed softly when they heard her dream. Some said, "Writing is nice, but it is not a real future." Some said, "You should do something more secure." Some said, "There are millions of writers in the world. Why would anyone read your book?" Some did not say anything, but their silence said enough. Elena heard all of it, and even when she smiled, the words hurt her. Because when you carry a dream alone, every small doubt from others feels heavy. Still, she kept writing. At night, when the town became quiet, Elna sat at her small wooden desk. A yellow lamp stood beside her. The window was open. The sound of the waves entered her room. The sea kept moving, and Elena's pen kept moving too. She wrote after long days. She wrote when she was tired. She wrote when her fingers hurt. She wrote when her mind was full of questions. Sometimes she wrote only one page, sometimes only one paragraph, sometimes only one sentence. But she wrote. Because her dream was not loud, it was quiet, but it was alive. Her first novel took almost 3 years to finish. 3 years of hope, 3 years of doubt, 3 years of rewriting, 3 years of deleting lines and writing them again, 3 years of wondering if the story was good enough. The novel was about a girl who lived near the sea and waited for a letter that could change her life. In some ways, the story was not only fiction, it carried pieces of Elena's own heart, her loneliness, her hope, her fear, her desire to be seen, her wish that someday, somewhere, someone would understand the world she had built with words. When Elena finally finished the last page, she sat in silence for a long time. She did not celebrate loudly. She did not call everyone. She simply placed her hand on the pages and cried, not because she was sad, but because she had finished something that once felt impossible. That night, she whispered to herself, "I did not give up." For the first time, her dream felt real, not complete, not successful yet, but real. After finishing the novel, Elena began sending it to publishers. This was another difficult journey. She wrote emails, she printed pages, she prepared letters, she searched for addresses, she followed guidelines, she waited. Days passed, then weeks, then months. Most publishers did not reply. Some sent short rejections. A few said the story was beautiful but not suitable for them. Every rejection hurt. No matter how polite it was, it still felt like a closed door. At first, Elena tried to be strong. She told herself, "This is part of the journey." But after many rejections, strength became harder. One evening, she received another rejection. She read it twice. Then she closed her laptop and stared at the wall. For a moment, the room felt too quiet. Her dream, which once felt bright, now felt far away. She asked herself, maybe they are right. Maybe I am not good enough. Maybe I wasted 3 years. That is the danger of rejection. It does not only reject your work. Sometimes it makes you question your worth. But deep inside, a small voice remained. A quiet voice. Not loud, not dramatic. Just steady. It said, "Try one more time." So Elena did. There was one famous publishing house in the city. It was one of the biggest names in the literary world. Writers dreamed of being accepted there. Their books reached many countries. Their authors became known. Their approval could change a writer's life. Elena had always been afraid to send her manuscript there. She thought, "They will never choose someone like me." But one rainy afternoon, she gathered courage. She prepared her submission carefully. She checked every detail. She wrote a simple letter. Then she sent her novel. After sending it, she felt both relieved and terrified. It was like placing her heart into an envelope and sending it into the unknown. Then the waiting began. 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, 2 months. Nothing. Elena tried to continue normal life. She helped at home. She worked small jobs. She visited the bakery. She walked near the sea. She smiled when people spoke to her. But inside, she was always waiting. Every morning she checked her email. Every afternoon she watched for letters. Every sound near the door made her heart jump. Waiting can be more painful than rejection, because rejection at least gives an answer. Waiting keeps the heart hanging between hope and fear. Then, one afternoon, something happened. The sky was gray, the wind was strong, the sea looked restless. Elena was returning home when she saw the old postman near her gate. He was holding a few letters. One envelope was different. It was cream-colored, clean, formal. It had the name of the famous publishing house printed on it. Elena's heart almost stopped. For a moment, she could not move. The postman smiled and said, "This one looks important." Elena took the letter with shaking hands. She went inside. She closed the door. She sat at her desk. The same desk where she had written her novel. For a few seconds, she only looked at the envelope. Her whole future seemed to be inside that paper. Finally, she opened it. Her eyes moved quickly over the words. Then she froze. The publisher had read her manuscript. They had liked her writing. They had invited her to a meeting in the city. A real meeting, with a real editor, a real chance. Elena covered her mouth with her hand. Tears filled her eyes. But then she looked at the date. The meeting date had already passed. It was yesterday. The letter had arrived too late. For a long moment, Elena did not understand what she was seeing. She read the date again, and again, and again. But the truth did not change. The biggest opportunity of her life had come, and she had missed it. Not because she refused, not because she was lazy, not because she did not care, but because the letter arrived too late. She sat there in complete silence. Outside, the sea continued moving. The town continued breathing. People continued living their normal lives. But inside Elena, something broke. The same letter that should have brought hope now felt like a wound. She had waited for months. She had prayed for one chance. She had survived rejection after rejection. And when the chance finally came, it came late. That night, Elena did not write. For the first time in many years, she closed her notebook and pushed it away. The pages felt too painful to touch. Her dream, once alive, now felt cruel. She whispered, "Why would life show me the door only after it closed?" And there was no answer. Only the sound of waves in the darkness. Chapter 2. The day hope turned into silence. The next morning, Elena woke up with the letter still on her desk. For a few seconds, she forgot what had happened. Then her eyes moved toward the cream-colored envelope, and everything returned. The meeting, the date, the missed chance, the painful truth. The letter had arrived too late. Elena sat on the edge of her bed and stared at the floor. Her room looked the same small desk, the same yellow lamp, the same notebooks, the same window facing the sea. But something inside her felt different. Yesterday, she was a girl with a dream. Today, she felt like someone whose dream had been taken away by time. She picked up the letter again. She read the words slowly. The publisher had admired her writing. They had invited her to meet an editor. They had said her voice was promising. That one word hurt her the most. Promising. It meant they had seen something in her. It meant she was not completely invisible. It meant her writing had almost opened a door. Almost. And sometimes almost hurts more than never. If they had rejected her, she could have cried and moved on. But this was worse. The door had opened. and she had arrived after it closed. Elena tried to call the publishing house. Her hands trembled as she held the phone. The first call did not connect. The second call was transferred. The third call finally reached a receptionist. Elena explained everything. Her voice was polite, but her heart was breaking. She said the letter had arrived late. She said she had not known about the meeting. She asked if there was another chance. The receptionist listened. Then she said the editor had already left for another project. The schedule was full. The opportunity could not be repeated at the moment. Elena thanked her and ended the call. She did not cry immediately. She simply sat there, holding the phone. Sometimes pain is so deep that tears come late. First comes silence, a heavy silence, a silence that sits inside your chest and makes breathing feel difficult. Elena looked at her manuscript. The pages were stacked neatly beside her desk. 3 years of her life were inside those pages. 3 years of late nights. 3 years of hope. 3 years of believing that maybe, one day, her story would reach the world. Now those pages looked like a dream that had failed to leave the room. That day, Elena did not go outside. She did not walk near the harbor. She did not visit the bakery. She did not open her notebook. She did not answer messages. She stayed inside her room while the town moved normally around her. And that is one of the loneliest feelings in life. When your inner world is falling apart, but the outside world continues like nothing happened. The sea still moved. The birds still flew. The market still opened. People still laughed. Life did not stop for her heartbreak. In the evening, her aunt came to visit. Elena's Aunt Mara lived a few streets away. She was a quiet woman with gentle eyes and strong hands. She had worked in a small school library for many years. She loved books, but more than books, she loved people who were brave enough to dream. When Mara entered Elena's room, she saw the letter on the desk. She saw Elena's face, and she understood that something painful had happened. Elena gave her the letter. Mara read it slowly. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she sat beside Elena. Elena finally spoke. It came too late. Her voice was almost empty. I waited for months. I checked every day. And when the answer came, I had already missed it. Mara looked at her with sadness. I know it hurts. Elena laughed softly, but there was no happiness in it. No, it does not only hurt. It feels cruel. Mara stayed silent. Elena continued. Why would life do that? Why would it give me a chance after the chance was gone? If I was not meant to have it, why send the letter at all? This question stayed in the room like smoke. Mara did not answer quickly. Wise people do not rush to explain pain. They know that sometimes the heart needs space before it can receive meaning. After a while, Mara said, Maybe this was not the door. Elena looked at her. What does that mean? Mara said, Maybe it looked like the door. Maybe you believed it was the only door. But maybe life is still moving. Elena shook her head. That sounds beautiful, but it does not change anything. Mara nodded. No, it does not change today. Today hurts. But do not decide the meaning of your whole life while your heart is broken. Elena looked away. Those words touched something inside her, but she was too hurt to accept them. Do not decide the meaning of your whole life while your heart is broken. That night, Elena tried to sleep, but she could not. Her mind kept returning to the same thought. If the letter had arrived one day earlier, everything would be different. One day. only one day. Sometimes life does not need a big tragedy to break you. Sometimes one missed day is enough. For the next few weeks, Elena stopped writing. Her notebook remained closed. Dust slowly collected on the cover. She still went through daily life, but without the same light. She helped at home. She worked. She smiled when people greeted her. But her smile had become quiet. People in the town did not know what had happened. They did not know a famous publisher had almost chosen her. They did not know she had missed the meeting. They did not know that every evening she sat near the sea and felt like the waves were carrying her dream away. One afternoon, Elena walked past a small cafe near the harbor. The cafe was called the Blue Lantern. It was old, warm, and filled with the smell of coffee and baked apples. Inside, a few people were sitting with books and cups. There was a small wooden board near the entrance. On it was written, "Open Reading Night. Friday. Bring a poem, a story, or a page from your heart." Elena stopped. She read the words once, then again. A page from your heart. For a moment, something inside her moved. A small memory, a small desire, a small piece of the old Elena. But immediately, fear answered. No, she walked away. That night, she thought about the cafe again. Open Reading Night. She imagined standing in front of people, reading her words aloud. Her hands would shake. Her voice might break. People might not care. People might get bored. Someone might laugh. Someone might see that her story was not good enough. The fear was strong, but under the fear, there was something else. A question. What if I try? The next Friday, Elena went to the Blue Lantern. She told herself she was only going to listen. Only listen, nothing more. The cafe was small, but it felt alive. There were candles on the tables. Rain tapped gently on the windows. A few people read poems. One man read a funny story about his dog. A young woman read a letter to her future self. An old sailor read a memory from his youth. The writing was not perfect. Some voices shook. Some lines were simple. Some stories were unfinished. But something about the room felt honest. Nobody was trying to be famous. Nobody was trying to impress the world. They were simply sharing pieces of their hearts. And for the first time in weeks, Elena felt the pain inside her loosen a little. At the end of the night, the cafe owner asked, "Does anyone else want to read?" Elena looked down at her hands. Her manuscript was not with her. But inside her bag, she had one folded page, a page from her novel. She had carried it by accident, or maybe not by accident. Her heart began to beat faster. The room was quiet. The cafe owner smiled gently. Elena slowly raised her hand. "I can read something," she said. Her voice was small, but it was there. She walked to the front. Her fingers trembled as she unfolded the paper. She looked at the people in the room. Strangers. Quiet faces. Waiting eyes. For a moment, she almost ran away. Then she remembered Mara's words. Do not decide the meaning of your whole life while your heart is broken. Elena took a breath, and she began to read. At first, her voice was weak, but as the words came out, something changed. The story that had been trapped inside her room was now alive in the air. People were listening. Not everyone. Not perfectly. But some were leaning forward. One woman closed her eyes. The old sailor stopped stirring his coffee. The rain continued outside, and Elena's voice slowly became steadier. She read a scene about a girl standing near the sea, waiting for a letter that could change her life. The words were simple, but they carried truth. When she finished, the room stayed silent for a moment. Then people clapped softly, not loudly, not dramatically, but warmly. And for Elena, that small clap felt like a hand reaching into a dark room. After the reading, an old man approached her. He had silver hair, a dark coat, and sharp but kind eyes. He introduced himself as Thomas Reed. He said he had once worked as an editor in the city. Elena froze. An editor. The word felt dangerous and hopeful at the same time. Thomas said, "You have a voice." Elena did not know what to say. He continued, "But your story is still hiding from itself." Elena frowned slightly. "What does that mean?" Thomas smiled. "It means the heart is there, but you are protecting it too much. You are writing carefully because you are afraid of being rejected. The best parts of your story are the parts where you stop trying to sound like a writer and simply tell the truth." Those words stayed with Elena. For months, she had wanted someone to say, "Your book is perfect." But Thomas did not say that. He said something more useful. He saw her gift, and he saw the wall around it. Before leaving, Thomas gave her a small card. "If you ever want honest feedback, bring me the manuscript." Elena looked at the card. For the first time since the late letter, she felt something she thought she had lost. Not success, not certainty, but movement. A path. A possible next step. Chapter 3. The door she never planned to open. The next morning, Elena woke up before sunrise. For the first time in weeks, she did not feel completely empty. The pain was still there. The late letter still hurt. The missed meeting still lived in her mind. But something had changed. She'd read her words aloud. People had listened, and someone who understood books had seen something in her writing. Thomas Reed's card was lying on her desk. Elena picked it up and read the name again. Thomas Reed. Editor. The word felt heavy. She was afraid to meet him. Afraid he would find too many mistakes. Afraid he would confirm her worst fear, that her book was not enough. But a deeper fear was also there. What if he was right? What if her story was not finished? What if the late letter had not stolen her future? What if it had revealed that she was not ready yet? That thought was painful, because sometimes we do not only fear failure, sometimes we fear the truth that we still need to grow. Elena spent the whole day thinking. By evening, she took out her manuscript. The pages looked familiar, but now she saw them differently. Before, the manuscript had felt like a finished dream. Now, it felt like a living thing that still needed care. The next afternoon, she went to Thomas Reed's small apartment above an old bookstore. The stairs creaked under her feet. Her hands held the manuscript tightly. When Thomas opened the door, the room behind him was filled with books. Books on shelves, books on tables, books stacked near windows. It smelled of paper, tea, and time. Thomas invited her in. He did not speak too much. He simply took the manuscript and said, "I will read it carefully." Elena expected a quick opinion, but Thomas said real reading takes time, so she had to wait again. Waiting had hurt her before, but this time, the waiting felt different. It was not empty waiting. It was active waiting. During the next few days, Elena returned to the Blue Lantern. She listened to others read. Sometimes she read small pieces, not from her novel only, sometimes from her journal, sometimes from memories, sometimes from thoughts she had never spoken before. Slowly, she discovered something important. Writing was not only about being published. Writing was also about connection. A sentence could make someone feel less alone. A story could give someone courage. A memory could open another person's heart. Elena had always wanted her book to reach the world. But now she understood that even one listening heart mattered. A week later, Thomas called her. He had finished reading. Elena went to his apartment with fear in her chest. Thomas placed the manuscript on the table. It had notes everywhere. Marks, lines, questions, comments. At first, Elena felt hurt. So many marks, so many changes. Her heart whispered, maybe it is bad. But Thomas looked at her and said, this is not bad. This is buried. Elena did not understand. Thomas continued, there is a powerful story inside this manuscript, but you are writing around the pain instead of writing through it. Elena sat quietly. Thomas opened one page. Here, your character loses something important, but you move past it too quickly. You do not let the reader feel it. Why? Elena looked at the page. She knew why, because that part was too close to her own heart. Thomas said gently, readers do not connect with perfect sentences first. They connect with truth. That sentence changed Elena. Readers do not connect with perfect sentences first. They connect with truth. For the next several weeks, Thomas helped Elena rewrite the book. He was not soft with the work, but he was respectful with her heart. He did not insult her. He did not shame her. He did not make her feel small. He showed her how to make the story stronger. He taught her how to slow down important moments, how to make characters feel real, how to remove unnecessary lines, how to let silence speak, how to show emotion without explaining too much, how to trust simple words. Most importantly, he taught her that rejection was not always the enemy. Sometimes rejection was direction. Sometimes a closed door was telling you, not this version, not this timing, not this path. Grow first. Elena began waking early. She wrote before breakfast. She worked during the day. She edited at night. She carried a notebook everywhere. At the cafe, near the harbor, on the bus, in the bookstore. She wrote lines when they came to her. Some days, writing felt beautiful. Some days, it felt terrible. Some days, she deleted more than she wrote. Some days, she cried over one paragraph. But she did not stop. Something inside her had become stronger, not because the pain disappeared, but because she was finally using the pain. The late letter had broken her heart. But now that heartbreak was entering the story. Her novel became deeper, more honest, more human. The main character no longer waited passively for life to change. She began to move. She began to question. She began to grow. And while Elena changed the character changed Elena. This is the secret power of art. Sometimes you create the story, and sometimes the story recreates you. One evening, after a long editing session, Thomas said, "Do you know why I think that first publisher was not your door?" Elena looked at him. Thomas said, "Because they liked your manuscript when it was still hiding its strongest truth. If they had taken it then, you might have stayed safe. You might have published a weaker version of your own heart." Elena was silent. Thomas continued, "The late letter hurt you, but it forced you into the room where your real voice could be found." Elena looked at the manuscript. For the first time, she did not see only failure. She saw preparation. Maybe the first version of the book had not been wrong, but it had been incomplete. Like her. She was not wrong. She was becoming. Weeks turned into months. The small cafe readings became more popular. People in the town began coming on Friday nights. Not because Elena was famous, but because her words felt real. She read short pieces from her rewritten novel, and people listened with quiet attention. A woman once came to her after a reading and said, "I felt like you wrote what I never knew how to say." Elena carried that sentence home like a treasure. One sentence from one stranger gave her more strength than many empty compliments could have given, because now she understood. Writing was not about being admired. It was about reaching the truth inside people. One day, Thomas told Elena about an independent literary festival in another city. It was smaller than the world she had dreamed of. No big publishing house, no famous editor waiting in a glass office, no perfect golden opportunity. But there would be readers, small publishers, book lovers, editors, writers, people who cared about honest stories. Thomas said, "You should submit your revised manuscript." Elena felt fear rise again. The old fear. What if they reject it? Thomas smiled gently. "Then you will still be a writer." That answer was simple, but it freed something inside her. Before, Elena had believed she was a writer only if someone important accepted her. Now she was beginning to understand. She was a writer because she wrote, because she told the truth, because she kept returning to the page, because she did not let a late letter bury her voice. So she submitted her revised manuscript to the festival. This time, she did not send it with desperate hope. She sent it with quiet strength. She had done the work. She had faced the pain. She had rewritten the story. She had become braver. Now the result was not fully in her hands, but her effort was. Days passed, then weeks. Elena continued writing. She did not stop her life to wait. She still checked her messages, but she no longer lived only for one answer. That was growth, because hope is beautiful, but when hope becomes obsession, it steals your peace. One morning, while Elena was helping arrange chairs at the Blue Lantern, her phone vibrated. An email from the literary festival. Her hands became cold. She opened it. They had accepted her manuscript for a reading and editor review. Elena stood completely still. The cafe owner asked, "Are you okay?" Elena looked up, eyes full of tears. This time, the opportunity had not come through a cream-colored letter. It had not come from the famous publishing house. It had not come the way she had imagined. It came through a small cafe, a retired editor, a rewritten story, a path she never planned to walk. Elena smiled through tears. For the first time, she felt that life had not forgotten her. Maybe life had been guiding her through a road she could not understand yet. Chapter 4. The reason behind the delay. The day of the literary festival arrived. Elena stood at the train station with her manuscript in her bag and fear in her heart. This time she had checked everything. The date, the time, the platform, the ticket, the address, the email. She had checked it so many times that even her fear became tired. But deep inside, she was still afraid. Not only afraid of rejection, she was afraid of hoping again. Because when life breaks your heart once, hope feels dangerous the next time. You want to believe. But a part of you whispers, "What if it hurts again?" Elena sat near the window as the train began to move. The coastal town slowly disappeared behind her. The sea became smaller. The houses became tiny. The road opened toward the city. She looked outside and held her manuscript close. This was the same dream. But she was not the same girl anymore. Before, she wanted one famous publisher to save her life. Now she understood something deeper. No opportunity can save a person who does not believe in their own voice. And no rejection can destroy a person who keeps returning to their purpose. When Elena reached the city, the festival was already full of people. There were writers, readers, editors, small publishers, students, and old book lovers. Some people wore expensive clothes. Some carried notebooks. Some were speaking confidently. Some looked nervous like her. Elena entered the hall and felt small again. The old fear returned. What am I doing here? Maybe I do not belong here. Maybe they will see that I am just a girl from a small town. But then she remembered every night she had written beside the sea. Every page she had rewritten. Every Friday she had read at the Blue Lantern. Every correction Thomas had given her. Every time she wanted to quit but did not. And she told herself, I may be afraid, but I have earned the right to stand here. That sentence gave her strength, not arrogance, strength, because confidence does not always mean you feel fearless. Sometimes confidence means you feel fear, but you do not leave. When her name was called, Elena walked to the stage. The lights were warm. The room became quiet. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened her pages. For 1 second, she saw the old version of herself, the girl sitting alone with the late letter, the girl who thought everything was finished, the girl who had closed her notebook and believed life had betrayed her. Then she looked at the audience and began to read. This time, her voice did not hide. It was soft but clear, simple but alive. She read about waiting, about loss, about a letter that arrived too late, about a dream that almost died, about the painful space between what we wanted and what life gave us. As she read, the room changed. People stopped moving. A few leaned forward. Someone wiped their eyes. Someone closed their notebook and simply listened. Elena was not trying to impress them anymore. She was telling the truth. And truth has a power that perfect words do not have. When she finished, the silence lasted for a few seconds. Then the applause began. It was not the loudest applause in the world, but it felt real. And for Elena, real was enough. After the reading, several people came to speak with her. Some said her story felt personal. Some said it reminded them of their own missed chances. Some said they wanted to read the full book. Then a woman approached her. She introduced herself as Clara Morgan. She was an editor from a respected independent publishing company. Clara did not speak like someone trying to impress. She spoke calmly. She said, "Your story has pain, but it also has light. That is rare." Elena listened carefully. Clara continued, "We would like to discuss your manuscript." For a moment, Elena could not answer. Those words were simple, but they carried the weight of years. Her dream had not arrived through the door she expected. It had arrived through another path, a quieter path, a harder path. A path full of rejection, waiting, and rewriting. But now, standing in that room, Elena understood something. The late letter had not ended her dream. It had forced her to grow into the person who was ready for the right door. Months passed. Elena worked with Clara and the publishing team. The process was not magical in an easy way. There were edits, more revisions, more questions, more patience, more waiting. But this time, Elena did not fear the process. She respected it. Because now she knew that delay did not always mean failure. Sometimes delay meant preparation. Her book was finally published the next spring. It did not become famous overnight. There were no sudden crowds outside bookstores, no instant worldwide success. But slowly, readers found it. One reader told another. A teacher recommended it to students. A small magazine wrote about it. A book club selected it. People began sending letters to Elena. Real letters. Some wrote, "Your book helped me believe again." Some wrote, "I also missed a chance, and I thought my life was over." Some wrote, "Your story made me feel less alone." Elena kept those letters carefully, not because they proved she was famous, but because they proved her pain had become useful. That was more meaningful than fame. One evening, almost a year after the festival, Elena returned to her coastal town. She walked to the Blue Lantern, the same small cafe, the same wooden chairs, the same smell of coffee, the same place where she had once read with shaking hands. Thomas was there, sitting near the window with a book. He looked older now, but his eyes still carried quiet wisdom. Elena placed the first printed copy of her book on the table. Thomas touched the cover gently. He did not say congratulations immediately. He only looked at the book for a long moment. Then he said, "This is the story you were meant to write." Elena smiled. Her eyes filled with tears. Then Thomas reached into his coat pocket and took out an old newspaper cutting. He placed it on the table. Elena looked at it. It was about the famous publishing house that had sent her the late letter. The article said the company had gone through a major change. Many new writers had been dropped. Several books had been rushed, changed, and forgotten. Some authors complained that their voices were not respected. Elena read the article slowly. Her heart became quiet. For years, she had thought that publishing house was the dream, the only door, the golden chance, the life she was supposed to have. But now she saw the hidden truth. If that first letter had arrived on time, maybe they would have taken her manuscript too early. Maybe they would have changed her story into something safer. Maybe her book would have been published before it was ready. Maybe her true voice would have stayed buried. Maybe she would have entered the wrong room just because it looked famous. The late letter had hurt her, but it had also protected her. It had pushed her away from the wrong timing. It had led her to the cafe, to Thomas, to the rewriting, to Clara, to the readers who needed the real version of her story. Elena looked at Thomas and whispered, "So this was the reason." Thomas smiled softly. Maybe one of the reasons. That answer was important. Because life is not always simple. Not every pain can be explained perfectly. Not every loss has an easy answer. Not every heartbreak becomes beautiful immediately. But sometimes, after time passes, you begin to see small pieces of the reason. You see why a delay protected you, why a rejection redirected you, why a closed door made you walk toward the right one, why the thing that broke your heart also opened your eyes. That night, Elena walked alone by the sea. The waves moved in the darkness. The wind touched her face. She remembered the girl she used to be, the girl who cried beside the late letter, the girl who thought life had stolen everything, the girl who closed her notebook because hope hurt too much. Elena wished she could go back and hold that girl's hand. She wished she could tell her, "This is not the end. You are not being punished. You are being moved. You are being prepared. You cannot see the reason yet, but keep going." But maybe that is how life works. Sometimes we cannot receive the answer in the moment. Sometimes we only receive enough strength to survive the moment. The meaning comes later, slowly, quietly, when the heart is ready. Elena took the old late letter from her bag. She still carried it sometimes, not because it hurt her now, but because it reminded her. That letter had once felt like proof that life was cruel. Now it felt like proof that life was deeper than she understood. She looked at the date again, the missed meeting, the closed door, the painful delay. Then she folded the letter and held it close. For the first time, she did not feel anger. She felt gratitude. Not because the pain was easy, not because the heartbreak was beautiful, but because the pain had not been wasted. It had become a road. It had become a lesson. It had become a doorway. It had become part of the story. My friends, sometimes life will not give you what you wanted. Sometimes the letter will arrive late. Sometimes the call will not come. Sometimes the person will leave. Sometimes the plan will fail. Sometimes the door will close before you reach it. And in that moment, your heart may break. You may feel forgotten. You may feel unlucky. You may feel like all your effort was wasted. But do not judge your whole life by one painful moment. You do not always know what life is protecting you from. You do not always know what God is preparing you for. You do not always know which door looks beautiful from outside but is wrong for your soul. Sometimes the delay is not there to destroy your dream. Sometimes the delay is there to deepen your dream. Sometimes rejection is not saying, "You are not enough." Sometimes rejection is saying, "Not this place, not this time, not this version of you." Grow a little more. Trust a little more. Keep walking. Elena thought her dream was over because one letter arrived too late. But that late letter sent her to the small cafe. The cafe led her to Thomas. Thomas helped her find her real voice. Her real voice led her to the right editor. And the right editor helped her book reach the people who truly needed it. That is life. Sometimes the reason is hidden inside the road you never planned to walk. So if something did not happen the way you wanted, breathe. If someone left, breathe. If a door closed, breathe. If your plan failed, breathe. If your heart is confused, breathe. This may not be the end. This may be redirection. This may be protection. This may be preparation. This may be life moving you towards something your mind cannot see yet. Do not stop your story in the chapter where you are hurt. Do not close your heart because one opportunity closed. Do not bury your dream because one road ended. A closed road is not the same as a closed life. A missed chance is not the same as a missed destiny. A late answer is not the same as no answer. Keep going, keep learning, keep healing, keep trusting, keep becoming. One day, you may look back at the thing that broke your heart and finally understand. It was not the end of my story. It was the turn that led me to where I was meant to be. Everything happens for a reason. Maybe you cannot see the reason today. But keep walking, because life may still be writing something beautiful through the pain you do not understand yet.